We've said this before. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. There are still things you can learn about prepping.
Yeah, without a doubt. And through experience, what I've found are the ones who brag or try to take charge are usually the ones that actually have the worst strategies because they don't listen to other people.
Yeah. Let's face it, what are we prepping for? A picnic?
Yeah, seriously. I don't understand something that's so vitally important. You think that you would actually want to hear every bit of advice and try to learn about it. I mean, it may risk the life of you, your family, and your friends. All right, so here are the 10 things that are typically overlooked, the mistakes that preppers do that could cost them their life.
Think with your head.
You probably can relate to this, but once your eyes are opened and realize that the world is not so hunky-dory and things are so volatile that we need to prep because literally our lives may be on the line, it puts you into a serious emotional state where you can panic very easily and just want to buy every single thing you can think of to try to be ready for what's coming, for what is coming too, by the way. And my first bit of advice, thinking with your head, is do not go into debt.
Yes.
Because the debt is what's going to bury you when the time comes.
Yeah.
I think it's all part of a little trap they're doing to get us buried in debt.
It's easy to run those credit cards up. Don't do it.
And emotional tags with this.
Yes, you get emotional. You'll buy things that you don't need, can't afford when those emotions imply.
Yeah, I actually had a really good friend of mine. He was so excited. He bought an AR-15. He was so excited and bought it. Mm-hmm. And then I think he actually told me he'd owned one before, but then sold it. So he bought it. He's all excited. Then a few weeks later, I was like, "Hey, you want to take it to the range?" He goes, "I sold it." I was like, "What do you mean you sold it?" He goes, yeah, I really didn't think I needed it, so I sold it. And he sold it for such a cheap price. I would have bought it from you.
Yeah.
And he goes, I was too embarrassed.
Hasty decisions.
Take your time and relax. There's going to be time, and there's going to be a room for prepping still. So just relax. If you're especially brand new to this, just relax. That's your first thing you need to do, and do not panic buy. You need to make plans for this instead. Create lists. We're talking about a binder, a big fat binder for prepping, that can hold everything for you, not just a list of things you need to buy. Obviously, there's things you need to buy. Gear, food to stock up on.
Maybe medication that your family needs.
That dream gun or ammo you've been wanting in the store forever.
You can put your goals down too on there. That's important.
Training.
Yeah.
Medical.
Procedures that you might need to use.
Plans for bugging out.
Yeah.
All those things need to go in this binder. And it's really weird. Psychologically speaking, medically speaking, however you want to look at it, but when you actually write stuff down, it actually changes the way you look at it.
It does.
And have this list. Now, I would actually make a lot of this list actually check-offs, because once you check it off, it actually will help alleviate the panic buying anyway.
It does.
It makes you say, I feel better that actually I'm getting more and more prepared. I was more prepared than I thought.
Yeah, checking it off. It just gives you that reassurance that you've accomplished that goal.
And then I'd also do this. Actually have your little dream list of things you really want or are looking for. And I would actually carry that with you.
That's a good idea.
Maybe you hit a yard sale or a thrift store. And you have your list there. Because there's nothing worse than you're there. You're like, oh, what were some of those things I needed? Well, now you know.
Done that
Put
before.
it down on paper.
Yep. Food and water.
All right, so going into prepping, there are so many things that come into your mind as far as what you want to have. And the mistakes that people make is they start buying every single thing known to mankind.
Yeah.
Except for food and water.
Yeah.
That should be the first thing on your list.
It should.
At the very least, start off with 24 hours, then 3 days, then a month, then a year, getting into some freeze-dried stuff now. But when you have the list holding all this food and water on there, it actually makes it easier on you as far as be able to plan out meals for X amount of days or months or years. Yeah. And of course, freeze-dried is not always the way to go. It's great stuff.
It is.
But it's definitely pricey.
It is very pricey. You can get a lot of food for 1 can of freeze-dried. And once you open the freeze-dried, it's only good for so long anyway.
Yeah, it's 30 days usually.
It is. So
I took my 9-year-old to, I think we're at Cabela's, and we went down the camping aisle. And he goes, look, Dad, they have an ice cream sandwich. And they did. A freeze-dried ice cream sandwich. I've actually had one of these before, and it is delicious. For $3.50.
Was it $3.50?
$3.50 for an ice cream sandwich when you actually get one at Walmart.
Well, you get a whole box for $3.50.
For $2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously having those things for food and water, maybe more extravagances. You want to enjoy the apocalypse with a Neapolitan. I get it. I get it. But when it comes to food and water, that should be your first priority because people focus on guns and ammo and having the right camping kit to cook their food and having the right backpack or the right saw, the right knife and the right
It's
fire
not going to
starter.
matter if you don't have food and water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I bet you're going to be laying there dying for starvation or dehydration saying, at least I have my guns and ammo.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking guns and ammo. You should have guns and ammo. But food and water has to come first.
It is.
Has to. Develop your skills. This is so huge. So huge. Definitely a military strategy. You train as you're going to fight. And then when it comes time, you fight as you trained. And that was drilled into us over and over and over again because everything you'll do becomes absolute second nature to you because you train. But what I find by far that most preppers don't do is train at all.
Yeah.
I really find this a lot. And that's actually a really bad thing. 10 years ago, I think it was. We've been prepping for a long time.
Yeah, we have.
10 years ago, one of our kids was actually at a playground and a police officer was there with his son playing on the playground too. And he wasn't in uniform. We got talking. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a police officer. Like, oh, excellent. I was like, we actually do drills and train as far as if there's an intruder and all this stuff. And he was like, his mouth almost dropped. And he goes, nobody does this.
Yeah.
He goes, that's something you need to do. You need to train. Obviously, for prepping, it may not be for fighting. It may be for surviving. But you're not going to survive unless you train.
Yeah, it's just like fire drills in school. You have to train. We need to train and see how long it takes us to get out of a situation and how to protect our family or yourself. It's very important.
Fire drills at home. Yeah. We're out in the country.
We are.
And I've seen some of the volunteers here. I mean, they're really good at driving fast, but even their fastest driving, I mean, I shouldn't knock them for this. It's just 10 minutes away at least.
Yeah,
and that's even if they get a signal out.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to train for these things for fire, for medical.
Yeah.
What if somebody has a code right in front of you? Basically code blue. What are you going to do? What are you going to do if an intruder comes in your house?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Listen, and here's the key. Ready? Here's the difference. Experiential training is what you're looking for. Watching YouTube videos on all of this stuff is great. Let's go ahead and just talk about an intruder coming in your house.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Watch the YouTube videos so you can expect the unexpected. But unless you practice it, and I know it sounds really dorky, it feels awkward practicing it. But the more you do it over and over again, the more you'll be ready when it actually happens. But in our mind, we think, oh, I'll watch a YouTube video.
We've got it covered.
I've got it.
Yeah.
And you don't got it.
Yeah. Especially when it's a scary situation, you kind of fall apart and you have no idea what to remember. But if you don't rehearse it, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, so we're going to be going over some of this stuff in future videos. But I'll tell you right now, the number one thing somebody does in these situations, they freeze. People freeze. And it costs them their life. So preppers, you can prep all you want to, but unless you train with it, you're asking for trouble.
Practice with your preps.
And that's just like the skills we talked about with training, except here's the difference. Let's say I buy a BioLite. I have a BioLite. We actually have two of them. I love these things as far as making fires outside. That sounds like an arsonist. Making a little camping fire outside. Or you know what? Better yet, how about this? You actually have certain fire starters and you want to actually make a campfire to cook food and keep warm. Do you practice that? I know so many people who buy the magnesium fire starters and they never use them.
Yeah. Can you make a fire? They practice making a fire. That is life or death right there. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't know how to make a fire because you grabbed the wrong timber or the wrong wood, then you're going to freeze.
But we're talking about specifically with your preps, your actual items that you buy prepared for this, you will never know how to use it until you actually do use it. But now here's the worst part about that people don't realize. I know how to use a saw. I bought a little foldable saw. That's true. But you know how many foldable saws out there are garbage? They just don't work very well. And so you need to practice with these things and find out, this saw was not what I thought it was going to be. And it broke the third time you cut a limb with it. And you don't want to find that out when crap hits the fan and you find yourself needing to cut wood. And you're like, oh, I bought the wrong saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good time to know. So practice with your preps. Your prepper community. No room for the Lone Ranger. Remember the Lone Ranger? Yeah, so there's no room for this here. Even if you have a friend named Tonto, okay? Because in this situation, Community is absolutely everything. Have you not learned anything from The Walking Dead? I wrote about it years ago, yeah. But community is it. And it's not simply just trying to fight off zombies, although that's a possibility, probably not. But it's about techniques and strategies. And, you know, I can't tell you how many people I've sat down with, we talk about things. Yeah. And again, we've been prepping for a long time, and they'll bring something up. I'm like, oh, wow, I never would have known that unless we sat down and talked.
Bring it up in conversation.
Yeah, in conversations. And then furthermore, what's even better is you train with these people, because training with them, they actually may know certain tricks that you don't, and vice versa.
That's good.
And let me tell you, you never know something well enough until you teach it. And so if you actually have a brand new prepper with you and you teach them how to do something, you'll actually have light bulbs click in your head and you're like, oh, so that's why we do that. It's really a huge thing. But then what I always preach constantly is safety in numbers.
Yes.
So like, again, when COVID first hit and we saw the whole world going down, all of our neighbors, we all got together. Yep. Nobody said, hey guys, we're having a meeting. No, we just kind of got together and said, whoa, we need to talk about this. We need to protect each other and help each other out. And we did. We became even closer than we ever had before. So actually having your own community, no matter where you live, is vitally important, even if it's a community you bug out with.
Yeah.
You know, this community may actually know a good place to go to. Hey, thanks for joining our group. By the way, there's a farm that's like 35 miles away. We're all going to try to make it to. You want to come with us? Oh, yeah, I would love to. Having a community is so vital. So vital that if you haven't actually established any community for prepping, you need to do it now. Again, we talked about in the previous videos, like Craigslist or Facebook, something. You get groups going and you do it now. Put up little flyers at the library.
Yeah.
Put up flyers at the local gun store. Yeah, all those things. Gun store and post office. Those don't mix too well. But do this because you need to establish a community, and you need to do it now. Because if you're like, well, you know, I don't know anybody.
There are people out there.
You're that lone ranger. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest shocks that we have, and it happens all the time, is we'll be out shopping somewhere. It happens practically daily.
Yeah, when we're out in town anyway.
And somebody will come up and say, oh, hey, you're that Goshen Prepping channel.
We're like, yeah.
And what's cool about that is this.
There's more in our community.
It shows you how many people are out there, just like you, just like me. Yep. And you need to establish a community right now. That should be a priority.
Prep according to your location.
All right, this is going to be pretty quick. But, you know, depending on where you are, we're northerners. And, of course, I say that our Canadian friends up north are even further northerners than us. And, of course, other parts around the world, too. And then we actually have certain ways that we prep. And I'll tell you right now, when you dress for the cold, you dress in layers. Mm-hmm. People think you get the heaviest jacket, which I have some really nice heavy jackets that are so warm. But you do not want to be out working and cutting trees down in the middle of winter with a heavy jacket on, because you're going to start sweating. And once you start sweating, you take the jacket off and especially go to sleep at night, you're in big trouble because now you're soaking wet.
Yeah.
So knowing how to prep for your location is key. And down south, you would think the best thing to do living down south would be wear shorts all the time. I like my shorts. But the problem is, if you're actually out in the wilderness and woods and stuff, you're actually asking for more injuries by having shorts on. Mm-hmm. If you're just camping with the kids, that's fine. But if you're actually out seriously doing something because your prepping skills, you're asking for cuts and infections and everything else.
Bug bites and things like that.
Yeah, so you need to think about all these things ahead of time. You know, and maybe even like bugging out, you may actually go from south to north. Come join us.
You know.
Yeah, so have your preps appropriate for your location. That is key. Have a plan of action. This goes back with your binder. Stock your binder with this stuff. But you need to actually have 2 plans of action. If you have more, that's great. But the first one is your home base. You know, here we're in our house. Unless something catastrophic happens, we have no interest in bugging out. Yeah. We have all our preps here. We have all our guns here. You know, not talk about how many guns we have. Okay, we have everything here that we need.
Our water.
Our water, exactly. Food. We have food sources here. We have our shelter, our protection. Yeah. We have a roof over our head.
We have lots of wild animals between deer and turkey.
Absolutely. And so nevertheless, though, you need to have a plan. Mm-hmm. And the plan for your home base is, you know, if crap hits the fan, we need to actually be more serious about security around here. We already teach our kids constantly about security and what to watch for, and they watch for it too. It's amazing. We actually had one of our kids the other day say, "Dad, somebody's in our backyard." Our backyard, we're talking about acres. They weren't in our backyard. They were actually in the neighboring land, which almost never has anybody there.
Yeah.
And it was our neighbor. And I was like, okay, thank you so much for letting us know.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
great.
They came all running in yelling, oh, there's somebody in our yard, but they weren't.
You need to have a plan of attack. You need to actually have plans written out for everything. Again, we mentioned it before, plans in case there's an intruder, plan what are you going to do for if there's a fire, plans for everything, and practice those plans. All right. Then catastrophe hits. And what's going to happen? You got to bug out.
Yeah.
Okay? Bugging out, you need to have a plan for bugging out.
You do. Where you need to go, what you need to grab, who's going, all of that.
And actually have backup plans.
Yeah.
My plan is I'm going to go to Farmer Jed's farm, which is 35 miles from here, and the perfect straight shot is this way. But that perfect straight shot may not be the best shot, so you need to have plans ahead of time for everything of alternate routes. Okay, notice we're up north, I said route, not route. There are people down south say route. So we use more comfortable alternate routes. You need to have all this set up. Plans for everything. And here's the thing. One of the biggest things I have people say again is I can't afford to prep. Prepping isn't always buying stuff. No. It's coming out with plans and you understand what's going to happen. Do you understand that standard operating procedures exist for everything except for prepping? Of course they should exist for prepping. I mean, that's what these videos are. Yeah. People gain this knowledge, but you should write all this down.
Write it down in your binder.
Have it in your binder.
Because once the stuff hits the fan, you're not going to have access to internet possibly, and if you don't have it down, you're going to be lost.
Not to mention, you're not going to be thinking straight.
No.
You're going to be panicking, and you're like, what do we do? Oh, let's grab our SOP and off we go.
Yep.
Standard operating procedure.
Learn first aid. Don't just learn it, practice it. It's very important that you guys practice first aid.
And that's why if you ever take like a CPR class, at the very least, do they just teach you the CPR?
No, you have to practice a lot.
Practice it, exactly. But it should be that way for everything with first aid, and there's so many things. And what I find is, again, people have panic buying. They buy every medical device known to mankind and stock up their tubs full of medical stuff, and they don't have a clue how to use half the stuff. And they think that by having a book, they'll be good to go, and they think that when it comes time and somebody's really hurting, they'll be able to flip through the pages, tourniquet. No, give me a break. You need to be able to practice this stuff. Now, it's best to find somebody who actually knows things very well for practicing. And I would actually say a doctor or a nurse would work well, but
they're busy.
In a lot of cases, an EMT.
Yeah.
EMTs know their stuff as far as emergency things go.
That's true.
Yeah, so if you have an EMT or a firefighter, a paramedic, you know those things. So you need to learn the stuff and practice it.
Maybe in your local area, you could set up at your fire department, and you can get together and have a group and meet other people that are doing the same thing and practice it.
Yeah, and if you meet once a month, you can talk about different types of dressings and different types of wound care. Yeah, definitely get into this and actually practice. You have to practice this stuff. And again, because the more you practice, the better it will happen smoothly when the actual event does come around. Number 10, get into shape. No, I refuse. No, of course I don't refuse. We're trying to do what we can even.
It's hard.
Yeah, we've actually both lost a lot of weight. And we did it through keto. We try to exercise. We go for walks on our property. And I'll be honest with you, here's the thing. People will say, oh yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. You'll never know good shape until you live out in the country.
Yeah, it's so hard.
It's so difficult. And none of us, we don't need to be like the perfect epitome of shape like Canadian Prepper. He's a man.
Yeah.
He's got to, no, that's not us. And I'm sure it's probably not you either. But you need to be in shape. And,
or
even
do your best to be.
Yeah, just if you do a little bit of cardio each day, just do something, keep your heart going, and try to do a little bit of strength training each day. It'll help. And, again, go back to practice. If you do have a bug out bag, my bug out bag is monstrous. I love carrying that thing and hiking with it.
I hate it.
I love it to death. Every one of our kids has a backpack.
We do, but I typically end up having the baby strapped on me. So
yeah, that's true. And I usually have like a couple firearms on me.
Yeah,
and stuff, Yeah, so but anyways, I love that stuff. But I'll tell you, unless you actually get out and do it, you'll realize. Rough. Yeah, you'll realize how much you're not in shape.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But unfortunately, today's society is catering to let's not be in shape.
Yeah, they like the couch potatoes.
Yeah, go to do your job, whatever your job is. Come home and turn on reruns of Magnum PI and not worry.
Magnum.
I do too. But that man was in shape.
He was
because he actually lived it. We just watched him. That's the thing.
That is so true.
We all need the Hawaiian shirt to be ready for that.
That'd be awesome.
Grow the mustaches. All right. So anyway, so many things, so many mistakes that people make. And listen, I'm not saying it's either you didn't do it or you did. No, it's a lifelong process to keep going through this. Even just getting in shape. You're not going to get in shape overnight. You're not going to have all your preps overnight. You're not going to have all your plans and stuff overnight. But continuously pushing in that direction is the key. You need to be ready for what's coming.
But if you don't start, then you're not off. You're not any better.
Exactly right. So there's your 10 mistakes. Don't make these mistakes. And the only way you can make these mistakes is simply just ignoring this and not doing it. Yep. It really is. All right. Again, thanks so much as always for coming along and following along with us. And we appreciate you very much. Go ahead and check out this next prepping video and let's learn how to do this better and practice.